You know what's funny? I had zero current critiques on the slate for this year. Like, things that are just in the now. And then we did one I did one in January. Now we're doing one in February. Quick turnaround.
Nice.
As far as, like, planning goes. But, the reason that the first one went down in January is because of, just life happening, and it was like I couldn't review the thing I was going to do. And when Black Panther Wakanda Forever hit on the Disney Plus, I was like, let's just be in the now, see if that does any good when it comes to views. And, like, I didn't go to theaters to watch it. You did, right?
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, okay. But as anybody who's watched the channel for 5 minutes knows, I'm not a fan of humans. Humans in the theater. And I actually think that might be one of the reasons why I'm such a fan of stories being told in comic form. And if you would like my story being told in comic form, there are limited first printings still available of Everlasting Survivors Volume 1 all day long. Via the link in the description to the Etsy store, you can pick up one of the only 50 ever printed Nick Crook covers, or one of the only ever 100 printed Jeff Hicks covers that are still available. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I took 12 pages of notes for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. But my first note is not about the film, but about the duration of the film. Because before I clicked play on the Disney Plus, I saw 2 hours and 43 minutes, so just shy of 3 hours. And that's not a good sign in my mind, almost ever. And by almost, I mean, can I think of something else?
Lord of the Rings, maybe?
No, I hate Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay. Oh, so that's the only thing I can think of with
a burning passion. Because, and by that, by hate, I mean, have the same complaint, which is, let's trim this thing up a little. Come on now, we got a lot of walking going on up in here.
Now, did you see both versions, or
I only ever watched theatrical version.
Oh, okay.
I already thought theatrical version was way too much. I'm sure not gonna go out and watch.
Yeah, because it's longer. But sorry.
Oh,
but I just
no, you're right. I may have watched extra super long one time because of a relationship I was in, and they were like, "Oh, it's so much better," and I'm like, "Nah."
Okay, because that's like the longest movie I can think of besides like Gone with the Wind.
Well, what I mean is, what I'm thinking of is there's something that's like got a lot of oomph to it that I like. So, as far as something with exceedingly long length that I find better than the short version, that the only thing that immediately comes to mind is Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Oh, true.
But reason being, and I made this pitch to Ahmed, I said, the movie itself already treats itself like a 4-episode miniseries. It says part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4.
Right.
So as long as you view it in that way, it's not hard to get through at all. And the story is expounded upon in the way that it's split up and it's improved as opposed to the shorter version. So I guess that's the best example of something that's long being good, in my opinion. Because the note that I took the most was, why is this so long? Why don't we trim this up? And it happened multiple times. But before I talk about all the things that I personally think could have been trimmed out, I gotta say that everything from the beginning until the 1 year later mark, I thought was treated spectacularly.
Just when was that? Explain the.
So the movie opens with something that surprised me, which is T'Challa's not yet dead. And I even said in the notes, I was like, "Oh, this is a bold move, having him die on screen." And then they kill him off screen. So I was like, all right, well, you still do what I expected. Because I expected them to kill him prior to the movie starting. Just because I didn't know. And so we get, a lot of emotional elements between Shuri and her mama. Well,
the Queen.
The Queen, there we go. And that's great. The funeral comes very quickly, but, that's okay. I did have some questions about the funeral, like, what's with this spaceship? Why is the casket being beamed up into it? Where did it go after that? But It's not like those things were absolutely relevant. I was just curious. Because, I mean, and it's not quite a spaceship, but like the floating.
Yeah. The ships that were in the first movie and how they transport each. Yeah.
So,
and then it was
So I was just like, where'd the casket go? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, no one knows.
Blew it off into the sun.
Yeah, they just.
I don't know. But anyway, that's irrelevant. All I'm saying is that the emotional weight of Shuri and the Queen to the death of T'Challa that was great. It was well executed performances. They were well executed performances. So much so that it bothered me when on screen but before we get to on screen 1 year later. I liked the Marvel Studios montage images.
Yeah,
all
the quiet.
not only the quiet, but all the images are reflecting back on the performance of Chadwick Boseman, and so that was top tier stuff.
Okay.
Like from beginning to the end of that Marvel Studios thing, I thought, oh, this is all really good, and then I immediately get turned off when it says 1 year later. How did you feel about the time jump and all the stuff leading up to it?
Great question. So I saw this twice in the theater. Once with a friend, once by myself. Both times I was moved, not like to tears, but it engages the heartstrings.
Oh, sure,
like,
absolutely.
Wow.
Yes.
So I never even realized that. Even the third time I watched it on my phone at work. I didn't even realize the time jump.
Don't tell anybody that.
Yes.
I kid.
I never realized the time jump until you called.
Oh, really? That's so funny.
And I was like, actually, you make a valid point of the time jump. You're like, if this was 3 months, 5 months, or something like that. Then
even 2 weeks. So
right.
My complaint about the 1 year later isn't that I'm anti time jump. If there's a relevant reason, okie dokie. But I just thought all the stuff that happened afterward would have been so much more raw and visceral and impactful and important if it would have been happened so much closer to the death. It would have made me understand why Anderson Cooper's like, we don't know how he died, he's just dead. Because it's so close to the death. It would have made it more clear why the Queen says, we're so much better than you at this UN meeting, because even though I don't believe that at all, because they were always warring against each other. It's like, oh, I should be the boss. No, I should be the boss. So it's like, are you really that much better? But it would clarify why she has the warped perspective, the concept of their superiority. But yeah, I was just curious, and it's so funny that you didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because it just kind of, and then you get the UN scene, and about so it was the French and Americans, but basically it's an allegory for like the superpowers.
Oh yeah,
pretty much,
absolutely.
And they're talking about vibranium, and they bring up the question of, hey, you said that Wakanda is going to be open to everyone now, so that should mean that the world should get vibranium
for sure.
And
or at least I could understand them believing that to be
right,
the case.
that they're believing that to be the case.
Yeah.
So then it's juxtaposed, right? Yeah, juxtaposed with the Queen talking, and you see mercenaries. It could be French Americans, but bottom line, they're paid. They're paid, and then they go into the ship, and then they try to get vibranium, but the warriors,
I just called them the guard ladies
a
bunch. I know that's not their name.
I forgot what their name is. But anyway, they defeat them.
The elite guard
them.
folks.
And then they're like, oh yeah, we're not protecting us from you, but we're protecting you from each other. And actually, you do bring up a point, and I'm not sure if the world knows about the Killmonger incident.
That's a good question. Yeah,
but that could have been a phrasing that the world powers is like, well, you had an incident in Wakanda where you almost got infiltrated. Technically not infiltrated, but the checks and balances where your king, if he loses a fight, now becomes king. What makes you so sure that you can protect if that doesn't happen again?
Absolutely.
That would have actually been, but we don't know if...
Right. There are far more questions than answers within the universe of the Wakanda part of the universe, I mean. Which is okay.
Right, everything doesn't need to be...
Yeah, I was going to say, we don't 100% need everything laid out. I was just saying, like... she's still so adversarial, not still, but she's so adversarial within this meeting that I thought, man, if it was closer to the loss of her son, I would have understood the harsh attitude that she was having toward other people.
Right. That yeah, because yeah, if it's just closer together, it gives more agency.
Although right after I wrote the complaint about the 1 year, they explain why that, in my mind at least, a justification for everybody's tension, because they're coming on the first anniversary, and every first anniversary post
Death.
Post loss. I was gonna, but yeah, is quite. It's quite the adjustment, I'll say, because your first Thanksgiving without your loved one is like painful, and then same with Christmas and then their birthday, and it's like, or however it falls, it's like every first is relevant to your ongoing grief, and so I kind of let the 1 year thing slide after the Queen and Shuri acknowledge that it's actually the anniversary coming, but I just think I would have preferred it to not have done the time jump. Is all I was getting at.
So this movie is very interesting because of its structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's told out of order or anything.
Mm-mm.
But I would say the first third of the movie,
Yes,
is a Queen's movie.
Oh, okay.
I would say like the middle section is more the Dora Milaje. That's their name, the Dora Milaje.
Good job.
Well,
so is that a hard thing to say? Yes, but the new title of the elite guard, which is Midnight Angels,
mm-hmm.
love that name.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
As soon as I heard that, I was like, that's a great name right there. Like, it's simple, it's effective, it's 2 point, and it looks cool.
Like the Chicago, is it? No, the Massachusetts scene, I would say that's Dora Milaje.
Yes, yeah.
And then I would say the ending, the third half, the ending part is all about Shuri.
Right.
And that's where I think the movie excels and then it falls.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I didn't really, because I was still emotional watching the first 2 times.
Right.
But watching it the third time, I'm like, okay, I see where the breaks are now. All the characters merge into one.
I also think that analysis makes it make more sense to me, the bloat of the film, because
mm-hmm.
if you had chosen one primary antagonist, that being, at least in my mind, Shuri, then you could have tightened the story and focused primarily on her. But you're right, when you have so many different vantage points popping up throughout, it makes it harder to trim it down. Or at least I could see why that they would struggle to trim it down.
Right.
And so that's a good call about what may have led to it being so massive.
Yeah, so long. Yeah, just so long.
So after all the UN shenanigans, I notated down. I said, up on screen it says Atlantic Ocean, and so we see a helipad, and a bunch of people are doing work out in the Atlantic Ocean, and I was like, at first I was like, man, is this the leader lady of this expedition? Is she pre-established? Because she looks familiar. At least I recognize her from something. But I can't put my finger on what her role is. And then I also say, I'm betting all these people are going to die because they didn't tell us one of these people's names. And then lo and be freaking hold, they all end up getting got because, they didn't tell us who they were. So it just felt right that they would only not tell us who they are because of their irrelevance in the grand scheme of things. But as this big Atlantic Ocean fight is happening, I thought that I always enjoy when the ocean is treated as an alien world. Mm-hmm. Most of us, and that I mean the human race, don't know jack about it because
we haven't been down to the bottom of the surface.
You go so far down and you can't do much.
Right, you get crushed.
You get crushed, all that. Yeah. And there are things that look very alien in the water, the creatures. So I just think that's a fun approach to take with visuals, mm-hmm. is when you take it that way. And
it's just one. It's, to me, this is one of the most standout things in the film was that scene because I love the introduction of the Atlanteans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one, it's creepy. You hear the little, but you think it's just the music.
Oh, so yeah. For a split second, I thought it was music, but then I said, "Oh, they gave the Atlanteans the siren song."
Right. Yeah.
And I thought that's such a great power to have.
Mm-hmm.
It is because you can manipulate people without them even knowing it.
Right.
And
yeah.
so yeah,
and it's just freaky, and you're like, wow, this is just really. It's like a horror movie, and
yes.
I'm a big fan of horror. But...
And so oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
about you.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool.
I like
or
horror.
interesting to. Have you told Ted?
No.
Oh, okay, because he brought a mug with all these like characters on it. So
really,
it'd be something you guys can relate to.
Yeah.
Not that we're all already cool, but like hey, that's additional thing. But that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so yes, the siren song power is great, but they instantly got rid of it by putting earplugs in.
Yeah.
And so, which is good because it shows the intelligence of the folks on the ship, and then within short order they explain why the ship is doing what it's doing, which is that they had a vibranium detecting device on the ship, and they found what appeared to be vibranium under the water. And so, that's good because, as was pre-established in the United Nations, Queen don't want to play nice with others, and so the others are trying to find what they want without her. And so I was like, okay, this is all fairly logical and doing okay so far.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I thought was illogical and kind of dumb for a smart character to say. So the Queen, when we're back in Wakanda, she's talking to Shuri about her friendship with her computer, the AI that's talking to her, and Shuri sure feels quite unaware that Ultron existed within this world.
Yeah, everybody makes a joke about that now.
I was like, oh, Mama, AI is all good. They'll do what I say. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, like, did you not hear what happened with Ultron? And like, hell, Vision is another.
Absolutely.
Right, the flip side of that.
Yeah, and like Ulysses Claw, one of my favorite characters within the world of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I hate got killed, and I still, fingers crossed, hope that they bring him back, mostly robotic, but you can see the guy and he can speak barely. Because I just love Ulysses Claw. And when I think of bringing in the Fantastic Four, I want him to be a part of the Frightful Four. Ulysses Claw is like one of my guys. And so my point behind bringing him up is he was out for vibranium. He was a part of Ultron's crew. Come on, Shuri, don't tell me you don't know. But hey, whatever. Nobody's perfect, so... Yeah, it was just an observation that I made.
Right. Well, so, and this is a thing that Shuri's talking about, is basically about like faith, and then like faith and technology, or
yes.
like one or the other. And that's a great theme to have in a movie. Now, my issue is the third time watching it is, to me, they don't do necessarily anything with it, because at the beginning of the movie she prays to their Panther god, Boss.
Yes.
And so,
then nothing.
You're right. And this is where, because if people don't know, Boss was in Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
She was sitting right below Thor and all of them.
Yes.
And I would find it so much cooler if Boss helped Thor out in some way, and Jane, and then realize, like, oh, I've been up here kind of pampered for all this time.
Well, and especially since they treated where Zeus and all the gods hang out as kind of like a party city.
Right.
Theoretically, party city, like just a chill spot, right? And if she was to have stepped away from the party place and taken on the responsibility, that would have made it make sense if she'd have come back to where responsibility lies here,
right,
in the known world.
And then use Shuri. Sorry, kind of jumping to the end, but using Shuri either as a vessel, kind of like Moon Knight,
yeah,
would make perfect sense. And then maybe she would tell her like, "Hey, this is how you make a heart-shaped herb,
Mm-hmm.
but you will be my avatar." Kind of like.
Well, yeah, I think that would have been a smart call, but here's why I think it didn't happen.
Okay.
And no knock on your plan, because I think your plan would have been excellent.
Mm-hmm.
But I assume the reason that didn't happen is because instead of taking the ancient god route, they just went for star power. And they said, got to get me some Michael B. Jordan up in here, and how can we do that without going to the ancestral plane? And so, if they would have done it like Moon Knight, where the god would have inhabited Shuri's body to manifest the powers,
Mm-hmm.
how would you have fit Michael B. Jordan into the film?
Yeah, well, when we get to it, there's some characters that I would take out of the movie.
For sure. Like I said,
yeah.
I just think that's the reason they made the decision
right, yeah.
they did.
Yeah,
Even though I think your way makes better sense and would have made for a coming together of the two worlds within Shuri's mind, both the ancient world and the modern day world.
Right, because to me, so with Shuri's arc, she goes on the similar arc to T'Challa in Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Vengeance, revenge.
Yes. Which is why I want this to be her movie, because I loved his I loved his story in Civil War.
I've even thought about this in Civil War just recently, because when we were talking about this movie over the phone, I thought about Civil War and Black Panther. To me personally, you could take Black Panther out the movie, and he doesn't really affect much of Civil War, but he was still good.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, he doesn't really, besides, because if you think about it, whatchamacallit was going to delete himself after he finished, and that's the only thing that he really does is stop Baron Zemo from deleting himself.
Let me say, I'm so glad Black Panther was there, because the character of Zemo and the actor who portrays him has done nothing but awesome stuff since he's returned to the property.
Right.
Because every time he shows up on screen in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I know he'll do, I don't know, but I suspect when he does the same thing in the Thunderbolts, he's gonna just make it golden performances, because like I love his work. So yes, thank you, T'Challa.
Yes, because everything with Shuri in the movie, I actually like. I like the arc that she's going through, because she has a lot of stress that's going on and regret.
Yes.
She blames herself for her brother, and she also a little bit blames her brother for not telling people ahead of time.
Yes.
I think that.
Well, and here's what I love about that concept happening throughout the film is her blaming him. Is in reality, Chadwick Boseman was keeping it private as well, and so it's almost taking
real world,
the reality of the situation and putting it into the film, so that and maybe that's because he was Chadwick was friends with the people behind the film, and they're like, man, if only we'd have known, we could have prepared better, thought
right, maybe
done
we could
something.
have helped.
Yeah, exactly. Done
right,
something. And I doubt that's probably the case, because I mean, but who knows? Who knows? No, you can't know that if you can help or not help.
Right. But you would still like to know, and that's why to me this film excels when it's personal.
Yes,
because it's Ryan Coogler writing his feelings.
So I agree with that thoroughly, because multiple times I said, why can't we stick to the emotional elements? Every time we would go to America or to Haiti or heck, even not Atlantis, I would be like, why are we here? Like, I want to go back to the people who are having the. Now, don't get me wrong. In the climax, in the post-credit climax, we figure out why we went to Haiti. But while it's happening, outside of Wakanda, every time we're finding other stuff to do, I'm like, why are we doing this? Can we please quit? And so, but on the topic of being outside of Wakanda, I ask plenty of questions about a particular character, that being please say her name.
Riri Williams.
Thank you. I always get tongue-tied with her name. So, first question I ask is, how did she create a vibranium detector? And then subsequently I ask myself, why did she create a vibranium detector? They explain it away with a throwaway dialogue line of, oh, somebody said I couldn't. And I'm like, I hate that explanation, because it was kind of the same thought process in the comic as to why she made used pieces of Stark technology to make an Iron Man suit is because somebody said she couldn't be Tony Stark, which, whatever, it's fine. I let it go. But she's also a bit of a dick to about everybody she speaks to. She takes a dude's phone to extort him for money for helping him pass stuff. Now, granted, he should have paid her like he agreed, but don't take people's stuff. The end. I find it weird that she's a human MacGuffin within within this thing. Like, oh, she's the answer to stopping Atlantis from attacking Wakanda. I'm like, all right, except she's kind of also the cause of why that Atlantis is threatening to attack Wakanda.
Well,
and
so
I bypassed Namor showing up in Wakanda to do the threat thing, to complain about her. But go ahead.
Man, maybe I just lost it. But how did Namor know that it was actually Riri?
Oh, so he doesn't know that it's her. He only knows that Un-American created this thing.
Okay.
Now, how did the Wakandans figure out it was her? No freaking clue whatsoever. They just show up and say it was her.
Okay.
Yeah,
I kind of.
In no way did they ever say how either side figured it out. Now, they do say that he doesn't know. He just said, the Americans have a thing to find vibranium. We destroyed it. We need the scientists to make sure they never do this again. And align with us so that they don't come after either side.
Right.
Paraphrasing, right? Now, how did the Wakandans know it was her? No freaking clue.
Vibranium.
Exactly.
So,
blah, 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 magic.
So, this is where...
But at least we didn't spend time figuring it out.
Right. They moved.
If we had 15 minutes of being like, oh, she had the something on her fingers, let's go take it from her, I would have not liked that either. So,
I'm probably one of only like 20 people who likes Riri Williams from the comic books. But this is what I always say about Riri. Even Miles, and me and Oz discussed about this, where I find Riri actually a great character, but not a good hero. Because in the comic books, her attitude is almost Sherlock Holmes-esque, where she's so smart that she struggles with friendships and relationships.
So I made, no, I didn't do it personally. When you brought this up to me, I had the awakening that she could be a character I love if written properly, because there's a show that I think is one of the best things ever on television called Scorpion, where it's an entire team of people who have genius level intellects and are really bad at communicating with the human race. And so I was like, man, if the people who wrote Scorpion wrote Ironheart, or if they just hire that whole team, put them on Ironheart, the TV show, then freaking spectacular. But clearly, the folks behind Wakanda Forever never watched Scorpion whatsoever, because every time Riri opens her mouth, I'm just like, please shut up, child. And thankfully she's not an actual child like she is in the comics. She's 19. I mean, she's not a extreme child like,
she's not
14, 15, younger even. Because if she was treating people the way that she does within this film and being extremely younger, I would have been like, please don't even bring her in here. So, yeah, no, but I think that you make a good argument for the concept of the character. It's just, in no way have I experienced her being executed the way that you feel.
You're right, the execution, because, so to me, when I was watching this movie, I was asking myself, why is Riri in here? And the only thing I could only grasp is why. Is that it's to show that Wakanda has changed from the old ways, how they were, because if you remember in Black Panther 1, they would have found her and gave her right to the Atlantis. It's like, hey,
I am not worried about this American whatsoever.
Right, because you're not from Wakanda.
Correct.
And that's the only reason why to me, now maybe it's so that Riri can have like a surrogate kind of daughter, but to me the relationship wasn't necessarily established that well in there. But
what you bring up about the evolution of their thinking is great and beneficial. And so when you said it to me originally, I was like, okay, so I wouldn't cut her completely out. Not that I think I could, because she's so all over the place. She's so all over the place. I don't even know if I could do it. But when you brought that up, I was like, okay, maybe just rewrite some dialogue, make her a little more sympathetic due to the fact that, Shuri, who is also super genius, isn't a complete dick. So have her help her be like, you know what, I got the brain power too, but I don't have to treat everybody like they're less than.
Right.
And so, no, I think that's a great argument. But I 100% disagree with you on why she exists. I don't believe it is to show the evolution of Wakanda. I wish that was the case. I think that she exists for the sole reason of a dialogue line that I wrote down. Cops are so dumb. She's got an Iron Man suit. And I said, this thing's barely a skeleton, let alone an Iron Man suit. Her whole body is open. If any of these people wanted to pull the trigger, she'd be done. But they don't, which is fine. I'm not saying kill her. I'm saying that it's not an Iron Man suit because there's no coverage.
Right.
There's no suit.
Oh, so when I was thinking about rewriting it, this is what I would say, like, why she made a vibranium detector. Mm-hmm. So my thinking when I think of Riri is I would have her idolize the past heroes, the Avengers.
Okay.
Of Iron Man, Thor, and all this stuff.
Well, especially with them being clearly non-existent.
Right. But especially Iron Man. And her thinking is, what is one way that I could have made Iron Man's suit better? Because that will be her hero.
Sure.
It's Iron Man. Yeah. She relates to him. And she's like, well, vibranium. Yeah. So why don't I try to build a tracker to track vibranium? And she does.
So what you're telling me, at least in my mind, is that maybe it could have been smart to have written her TV show that we know she's getting with these motivations in mind, have it be released, and then it can demonstrate who she looks up to, why she looks up to him, and then how she thinks she can help and improve. Mm-hmm. And if that would have been the case, and now granted they still can do it, but it would just be a little too late at that point.
Right. It would have been a smoother transition into her character.
Absolutely.
Because I think that would be great. And then she hasn't built the Iron Man suit yet, but you could already see that she's planning to build one.
Yes.
Because she likes Iron Man.
And it would give a reasoning. Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally with you. Yeah. But unfortunately, every time we're saying, if only, or what if they did this, these are all... Yes, they're, in my opinion, and yours too, clearly, since they're your ideas, good ideas, but without them being executed, it just shows how wanting the movie itself is, at least to me, because we are not far from me giving up on this movie. So I'm gonna jump to that.
Just jump to that.
I'm gonna jump to that because there is a point where, well, post Wakandans finding Riri, Atlanteans then subsequently take Shuri and Riri to not Atlantis. They call it something else, but I don't care what they call it because we all know it's Atlantis. We know that's what it should be, but the writers are either scared or
I think it's a DC.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Scared or trepidatious to touch it because of the success of Aquaman and not wanting to be accused of coming in second when anybody who has the Google machine can see that Namor came first. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, when we're in Atlantis and Namor is laying out his origin story to Shuri, I had to stop the movie because of what I call white supremacy. And what I mean by that is when Namor is laying out to Shuri why he and his folks have stayed underground, it's because in 1517 his people were given a disease by invading force, and his shaman or their shaman, because he's yet to be born in this story, their shaman had to come up with a magic elixir to save them, and this blue plant turned them blue and gave them the ability to breathe underwater. But I had to stop the film at this point, and I said, in 1517, no one knew about biological warfare. You've lost me, Namor. Like, because the first time we meet him, I'm like, all right, fine, you want to create an alliance to stop people from taking your stuff? I'm with you. I'm on board with you. But when you change it, when you take a different route, this route being the invaders, they did a thing that they were completely incapable of doing. Even if it happened, it had to have happened by accident. Because, do you know how to create a biological weapon today?
No.
Yeah, me neither. I know somebody knows how to do
Right.
it. There are people out there to do it, know how to do it in the now, but nobody. Everybody was me and you in 1517. Everybody was like, people get sick, and then they die.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't have the capacity to do that to somebody, and so I literally took 24 hours off from the movie after that point. I stopped it. I was like, "Don't let you breathe, pal," because I'm out. Like, I get that Namor is the antagonist, but anybody who comes at me and tells me, "Oh, in 1517 they did the thing," I'm like, "Nah, I'm good." And so yeah. How did you feel about this revelation, this reveal?
I mean, so I didn't even really think about it that much because to me, the MCU has played loose with like history.
Okay. Well,
like,
that's a good point. I wish I would have thought of that in the moment. Because,
like Captain America.
Of course, yeah.
World War II, they didn't have space lasers.
Yeah, space blasters.
You're right. And then I also thought like, who's telling the story?
Yes. And like I said, he wasn't even born when, so it had to have been something passed down to him.
And when like, have you ever had incidents where you get in an argument with somebody about an event that happened that they've necessarily done to you, and then you're like, hey, you did this to me, and they're like, no, I didn't, or then they try to flip the script and say, well, because you were doing this, you were flicking boogers at me. It's like, no, I wasn't. That didn't even happen. And then you're like, so I just didn't even really.
So you make a good argument. I actually, one of the last times I spoke to my father, he accused me of treating some woman impolitely when I was like, I don't know, 17 or something. I was like, and he lays out this story. He was like, oh, you were so rude to her. I'm like, you realize there was no woman in that room. It was literally me and you having an argument about my enlisting in the army. He was like, no, there was a lady there and you were impolite. And I was like, nah, man. I was like, you imagined an additional person in the story because you can't even tell me who it was. Tell me who it was. Oh, I don't know. Well, yeah, because they didn't exist. So yes, I see where you're coming from, but yeah, I had to give the movie a rest after that moment.
But that's why it just kind of escaped where I was like, oh, they're playing loose with history again. Even with Shang-Chi's dad is supposed to be a stand-in for Genghis Khan-esque.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, they're just kind of
that's true.
Yeah.
Man, you're a great justifier of my complaints.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So for me in the Atlanteans, like with Namor or Namor, however they say it both ways. Whatever. I like him a lot, and why? Because to me, he was T'Challa and Killmonger molded into one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Killmonger is like, hey, it's all about me and my people, but also he had T'Challa's mannerisms where he was a king, and you know how T'Challa walked around, he never really yelled, he just was a man about his business.
Yeah.
And I felt that the Atlanteans were a stand-in for also how Wakanda used to be.
Ooh, that's a good call.
Because, they're separated. You didn't even know that they even existed.
Yeah, so much so that Namor threatened the Queen and said, if you tell anyone else on this planet that we exist, we're coming for you.
Right, and that's basically the same way as Wakanda.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And it was a bit hypocritical. I wish someone would draw that out and say, like, especially to M'Baku, when he's like, well, we'll kill him. And it's like, hey, we were them.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought up M'Baku because every freaking time Winston Duke showed up on screen, I was like, this guy is my guy right here. Like, I hope that he plays a big role going forward with Shuri as Black Panther.
I thought he died, though. When he got punched in the chest, I was like...
No, you're good. But, like, every time before that moment, I was like, oh, this guy's amazing. And even after that, because he didn't get killed, I was just like, I love his the weight that he brings to every scene. Uh, because of his ability to know what it's like to rule, he can then come to the queen and say, Queenie, I think you you going at this a little sideways. And the same with the princess. Whenever she's making calls, he's like, you sure you're doing the right thing there? And but he's not diminishing toward them. He treats them both as equals in different ways. And yeah, Winston Duke, every time he shows up, his M'Baku character he just rocks. He's just great. And so yeah, I hope that he has a strong role going forward.
So this is what would have been great to me in the movie. So jumping a little bit ahead, T'Challa's wife comes in and saves Riri and Shuri from. She doesn't actually really save because they weren't really even in any danger.
Yeah, but she didn't know.
Right, but she was one of them.
She was enlisted by the queen because the queen is ultra protective of her only living kid, and that's totally logical. And so, yeah, you're right. When the love interest of T'Challa comes to make the rescue, it's kind of unnecessary because they're really just chilling.
Chilling, right? But he showed them the place. It's like, hey, man, this is great, isn't it? And she's like, yeah, you guys are really cool, actually. It's like, damn. And then the next thing you know, pew pew, it's like one of their own dies.
Yep.
And that pisses him off, and he's like, okay.
That leads perfectly into my next note,
okay.
Which is when the Atlanteans, Namor and his crew, invade Wakanda. I said, oh my goodness, are they killing the queen? And then I said, okay, cool, she lived. And I was like, oh, nope, she gone.
Yeah.
So Namor then comes in with a killer line. He says, bury your dead, mourn your losses, you're the queen now. And I was just like, man, Namor, you got that good, you got that one-liner up in here.
Yep. And then, okay. You know what's funny? I laughed at the Hermes wings on his feet. I literally did when I first saw
Of course,
him.
yeah.
But
it's always been a laughable appearance.
Yeah.
But his execution with them to all of his moves are.
Yeah, it's like a little fly or zip. Like I was like, wow, that's actually really cool. But sorry, yeah.
No, you're good. I was just but yeah, when he hit that line, Shuri's face is just so heartbreaking that for every complaint I have about its length and its breadth and its just bloat, there really is a good movie. Not a good movie. There's probably a great movie in this. There's at minimum a good movie in this if you just clean up all of the excess, the unnecessary parts. And honestly, that's one of the things I enjoyed most about my college experience was editing. Because whether it's adding in jokes or cutting out unnecessary elements, so I can remember this one class where the professor was friends with folks out in the Hollywood, and so he was given footage we weren't allowed to play with, and so we had to low-key edit something that he wasn't supposed to even have, and so I
Oh, okay.
And so I kept putting different jokes in because the cast they would do their own thing, and I was like, oh man, I'm this joke and that joke and this, but in this case, if I could have got the raw footage of this, I think that if this movie was cut down from 2:43 to just 2 even,
okay,
I think that it would have been. I wouldn't have had my complaints because I would have gotten rid of all of the disease stuff, like the blame portion of it. It can come, and the shaman can make a mistake, and that way it's on your own people, buddy, because legitimately it is anyway. And outside of too long and things that just I felt were unnecessary, there are so many things within it that would have been great, are great. But without the excess, it would have been better. So personally speaking, I went the route of calling the movie passable. Like it just barely passed to not being a fail. So I gave it a 2 out of 5 in that way. Because anytime I want to stop something and not finish it, which I did with this film, I can't call it fine or better. But by going back and finishing it and getting to the post-credit scene and the final fight. So the final fight is interesting due to Shuri having the Black Panther powers and outsmarting Namor, and deciding to not kill him because she doesn't want to be like her cousin Killmonger and wants to be more like her brother. So, like I said, if a lot of the excess had been trimmed, I could see a world where I would have given it a very good score, 4 out of 5. Or, depending on how well they told Riri's story before the film started, I could have given it a great because we could have cut a lot of her out of here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just because of the way that the film was released, I went 2 out of 5. What was your overall take on the film? And after you get there, I'm going to praise the post-credit portion, and I really think that if we got more of that, then I could have gone higher. How did you feel?
Great question. So when I first saw this in the theater, man, I was high on it. It was like, I think I liked it better than the first. Yeah, I liked it better than the first Black Panther movie.
Okay, yep.
Then the second time I saw it, I still was the same. The third time I saw it, I started to see the things that I didn't like and some of the issues that people were complaining about. And then when you brought up the 1 year later thing, I was like, oh, okay, I didn't even really think about that. But yeah, I think it would have been better if it was just in a shorter time frame. So mine is a 3.5. Before, I would have rated it like a 4 or probably somewhere around there.
Gotcha.
I checked the Rotten Tomatoes score. It says 84%. I think that's
84.
Yeah, 84.
Okay.
The audience
that's
is like 90.
That's like what a B.
Yeah, that's a B.
84 B.
Yeah, and I think it's a B movie.
Okay.
The audience score for it's like 94. I think that's way too high.
Sure, absolutely.
I think it's.
Dude, I was blown away. So while I was watching it, I got this pop-up from Reddit on my phone that said, I'm so glad the headline, by the way, said, I'm so glad I didn't see Black Panther in theaters. And so, now that got me curious. I clicked the thing, and it said, because Ryan Coogler made me cry 3 times, and if I was in theaters, I would have blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, that's some bait and switch headline there, buddy.
Yeah.
So, the first time I get literal tears, not bawling, crying, but like, oh, you got me, movie, you got me, is in the post-credit scene. Mm-hmm. So there were multiple times throughout funerals or deaths where I was like, oh, I see where you're coming from, either Queen or Princess or whoever. I see where you're coming from, and I feel what you feel, and I like what we're doing here. But it wasn't until the post-credit scene when it's revealed why Black Panther's love interest didn't come back to Wakanda post him being snapped away, and that's the fact that he had a unknown to the rest of Wakanda son. Now, it also revealed that the Queen did know, and it's now Shuri's responsibility to keep this close to herself. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the introduction of the son was the thing that finally got me, where I was like, all right, I'm on board. Mm-hmm. And it made me grateful that I finished the film. Because had I stopped with Namor blaming the invading force for all of non-Atlantis' woes, I would have missed out on that. Do you know who the kid is? Is the kid, like the real life actor of the kid, is he in any way related to Boseman?
No. He just looked
I was just hoping, because I was like, man, this kid's that's great casting right there.
Yeah, he just looks just like him. You're like, is that his son?
I was like, maybe.
Yeah, and it's like, no, they're not related.
And with him only needing 2 lines, I was like, he could be like, we'll teach you to act after you say these things, kid.
Yeah, and in that way, we could get a T'Challa later on.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that. So
I think that is presumably the goal, especially with the rumors being Young Avengers are on the way, and that Kate Bishop will be their guiding force. So, yes, go ahead.
But like what I text Osis yesterday, I firmly believe that this film is like Iron Man 2.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you remembered.
And why I say that? Because Iron Man 2, if you guys watch the movie, remember, there are some great ideas in Iron Man 2.
Yes.
But there's also a lot of stuff that looks like it's pre-establishing Avengers, and it takes away from Tony Stark and his coming to terms with a little bit of his mortality because he's dying.
Yep.
His father issues, which come in at like the later half of the movie, but that gets brought up. And then also with the villain. I like Mickey Rourke, villain, but when he loses the first fight at the F1 track race, and he has that infamous speech where he's like, "If you make God bleed, would people cease to believe in him?" To me, he already won.
Right.
And you didn't even need him necessarily anymore. You could have just locked him away, tucked him in, and maybe used him later on down the line.
Which is good because Mickey Rourke's a
great.
Yeah, it's nice to have him.
Right, and I just feel like this movie is setting up for Secret Wars.
Yep.
Because we know. Also, I love Louise Dreyfus.
Oh, yep.
She was great in the movie, actually. But
she's entertaining every time she shows up in these post-credit scenes. I believe this is the most she's been used.
You're right. Period. Yeah. Period.
So far.
And I just liked it because I truly believe that she was on Everett Ross's side.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, she's good.
Yeah,
and
she's a good manipulator. Is what it boils down to. She's good at, and that's been her MO every time she shows up. She's good at making people believe she's on their side.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that Thunderbolts will be interesting, since she's building or helping bring together the team. I'm not a fan that William Hurt passed away, but that's just the way life goes, and that I can't say I've ever been like, oh, I'm so happy that this occurred.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
but yeah, and it's also setting up an Ironheart TV show where I just think that there's so much stuff that weighs this movie down.
Yes.
That I wish it. Sometimes I wish I was like, damn, I wish it really wasn't a part of the MCU because I think all the other stuff wouldn't even been added in
That's
there.
true.
Well,
and that's why I said that if you edit out the bloat, that there is a really, really good movie in there, and I think that's part of why that it took your third time of viewing to really feel like, or not feel, but understand that like, oh wow, you guys went a little above and beyond with the content that wasn't needed. So
yeah,
but yeah, I think that now that it is in the books, right, Black Panther 2: Wakanda Forever, I think that hopefully in the future, Black Panther can be a tight, concise story being told, especially if it's Shuri exclusive, maybe Shuri plus M'Baku being like her heavy, if you will, because Batman, Robin, Shuri, M'Baku, that's fine, but just let's do a story next time that isn't everybody involved doing everything possible.
Yes, like literally, like you have 4 different storylines all at once, and you're like, ooh.
Yeah. So when you brought up the fact that there were basically 3, maybe 4 storylines happening, I was like, maybe the answer is do more than one Black Panther. Do Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, right? Mm-hmm. That's primarily the funeral story for Chadwick Boseman. Then you do Black Panther: Rise of the Heir.
Yeah, something.
As far as the title, and that's clearly Shuri's story.
Mm-hmm.
And so then within that next one, that's when you can really pick up Ironheart, because we've got all the Chadwick Boseman funeral stuff. We've touched on the Killmonger possibilities. The fact that Shuri, you can go this route or that route, right? So that's all done in Wakanda Forever. Then in Rise of the Heir, you do the Ironheart story, and then heck, then you can do Black Panther, whatever you call the third one. Fourth movie overall, but the third in the Shuri trilogy. That's when you bring in Atlantis and do all that stuff. It's
right.
Like, find a way to spread this out.
Spread it out, right.
And have it take some time. But yeah, anyway, it was a pleasure having you. I love having that positive, upbeat perspective to balance out because if I'd have done this thing solo, I'd have been nothing but a downer. And so it was great having your perspective.
Anytime.
And thank you for watching. come back this Wednesday for the Wednesday Rewind, and see you Friday for an update to the relaunch of Everlasting Survivors Volume 1 all day long, and the information about its return to Indiegogo.